Now joining us, Senator Elizabeth Warren from the great state of Massachusetts. Senator Warren, great to have you here on a day that you introduced the Anti-Corruption and Public Integrity Act. I already declared this on the Young Turks one of my favorite pieces of legislation ever. So yes. that's a bold statement, but it has about 1,000 parts to it. So can you first break down for us what you think are the couple of parts that are most important that people need to know about it?
Sure. So let me start with, most people think about corruption in government and they think about campaign finance. And they're right. I mean, that's a really serious problem. And it's something I've worked on, a lot of other people are working on. We need to overturn Citizens United. We need real reform in the area. But it's not the only problem. If we fixed campaign finance tomorrow, 100%, solve that problem, we would still have a terrible problem about the influence of money in Washington. The fact that this government works for the wealthy and the well-connected instead of for the people. So what I tried to do with this bill is identify different areas where there are problems and identify solutions. You know, it's not, you don't want to just point out to people it's bad. You want to say it's bad and we could make this so much better. So the first one, padlock the revolving door. The idea here is that these folks serve on Wall Street, they get big salaries, and then they just pass their way through over to government where they actually regulate exactly the same folks that they used to work for and will probably work for again. So this one has a lot of features in it, and we'll go back to any of these you want, that say we're going to padlock the revolving door. The second one, stop the self-dealing by public officials. This one ought to be pretty obvious, but if you are a public official, like a senator or maybe the head of one of these agencies, you should not own individual stocks. You should not be trading in individual stocks. Index funds, fine, that are across a broad market. But the decisions you should be making should be decisions that are clearly about the best interests of the country, not your own best interests. And by the way, that means people like, for example, presidents of the United States should not own outside businesses. I mean, right now, if the Saudis want to put a little money in President Trump's pocket, they just take a whole floor over at the Trump Hotel. And does that work? Well, we don't know for sure because he didn't divest himself of his business ownership and he's never produced his tax returns. By the way, that's another feature of this one. It says everybody who wants to run for public federal office has to be willing to put out there 8 years of federal tax returns. Third big one, in lobbying as we know it. And that means lobbyists can't make contributions to elected officials, but it also means the bigger pieces. The definition of lobbyist, if you're actually getting paid to go influence our federal government, then by golly, you got to register as a lobbyist. No more Swiss cheese hide behind maybe this piece and maybe that piece. We get everybody in and then a little transparency. Lobbyists want to meet with elected officials, fine. It has to be a public record of every single meeting. And if lobbyists give things to elected officials, I don't just mean gifts, I mean they give them documents, studies, memos. All of that has to go in the public record and be put online, searchable immediately. Fourth big one, support our agencies that are trying to do rulemaking against corporate capture. So this is one that basically says when the lobbyists spend $1 bazillion to overwhelm an agency, how about we tax the lobbyists and put some of that money back into the agency so they actually have the resources to defend the public interest? This is also one that goes into studies, which you know I care a whole lot about, that you don't get to put out junk studies and push them out there without revealing who paid for them and who edited them. And by the way, if if they don't meet basic scientific standards, then the agency tosses them out right from the beginning.
Right.
So the idea behind all of these are areas where there are problems, things we can do, and then the big one at the end is to say, and I'm sorry, one more, courts. We can talk about that if you want. But the big one at the end is hire a new sheriff. A sheriff, a single agency that oversees ethics throughout the federal government. The House, the Senate, the White House, the administration, the regulatory agencies make sure everybody's filing their paperwork, everyone's putting their tax returns out there, and that no one is trading in stock and so on.
Right.
Actually enforce these rules. So that's the basic idea. What do you think?
Well, look, there's a reason why I love it. I mean, but it's the same reason why Washington will howl. When you say lifetime ban on lobbying for members of Congress, and if even if you're their staffer, that it's a 2-year ban on lobbying. If you're going to be a corporate lobbyist, it's a 6-year ban even on staffers. All of Washington will say, no way, how are we gonna make money? How do you answer that?
Squealing. No, but that's the whole point. What you're really saying is that a lot of people right now have those jobs. They don't pay well for the staffers, a lot of the staffers. And everybody's taking a little peek at the next possible job, a little look over the edge. And as soon as someone starts doing that, they're not working in the public interest. They're working in some combination of maybe some public interest, but a lot of, does this make my future employers happy? Now, let me say because I want to be fair about this. One of the other parts I put into this is I think federal staffers ought to be paid more. That when people are paid so little and the pay rates don't keep up even with the rest of the federal government, much less with anything in private industry, it really puts a lot of staffers in a tough position. So my view on this is let's help them be a little more independent, and then let's require them to be a little more independent.
Right. So Senator Warren, look, the Republicans are not going to allow this for a vote. We get that. So that's easy. We understand it. I believe that they're almost wholly corrupt at the national level. But if the Democrats win the Senate, do you think the Democratic leadership will allow this for a vote?
Look, I want to keep pushing for it. I mean, that was the whole point of laying it out right now. I want to be able to talk about it in this election season. I want to be able to talk about it in 2018. I want to get out and point out where the problems are and that there are things we can do to make this better. I think that's just absolutely critical. And as you said, look at today. If we're not here as Democrats ready to talk about corruption in government, calling out what we see, then we're just saying, have at it. Just do what you want, guys. And that's just not okay with me. I didn't come to Washington to work for the rich and the powerful. I came here to work for the people. And I realize if we don't get some structural change in this place, we can't do that.
How about if they propose splitting up the pieces? Because there are a lot of different parts in this proposed legislation. If the Democrats win the Senate and Schumer says, all right, let's vote on it one by one, would you be okay with that?
Look, my view is no, I want all 100. I want them all right now. That's my opening negotiating position. And I'm not going to negotiate otherwise in public before anybody's made an offer on the other side. But look, if we could get half of what I've proposed here, it would make a real difference. If we could get 60%, make an even bigger difference. If we could get 80%, it could make an even bigger difference. And that's really the point. We got to start this. And these pieces all push in the same direction, and that is to take power away from the wealthy and well-connected and put power in the hands of people. And if we can, however much we can do that, that's a win.
So Senator Warren, I know that one of the themes, and probably the biggest theme of Democrats in the 2018 elections is fighting against corruption. So this is tailor-made because this is a bill that actually does something about it. It's got real teeth, I mean, significant teeth, right?
Yep.
So I assume that every Democrat has already co-sponsored it, right?
No, But look, it's a complicated bill. I've been working on this for over a year, and I've got a good group of folks who've been helping me do it, and people, in other areas who've weighed in and made offers. It was big, it was complicated. I wanted to get it out. Now I'm going to go around and keep talking to all my colleagues about it. So right now it's just me, but I'm going to pull in as many people as I possibly can on this.
Yeah, anyone who actually cares about fighting corruption, I think, should sign up for it. It's a bit of a no-brainer, unless one day they'd like to get paid a lot of money as a lobbyist, and perhaps that might be a reason they're not signing on to it. Okay, so now I know we're out of time here, but I got to ask you one quick question about something that's in the news today. Donald Trump said that the Democrats are on a, quote, political suicide march over the idea of abolishing ICE. How do you answer that?
Look, I went down to the border and I was there. I saw the cages of women, cages of children. I talked to mothers whose little babies had been taken from them, mothers who had been lied to, mothers who didn't know where their children were, mothers who had had no chance to talk to their children. And I talked to the officials at a renamed Family Reunification Center who just didn't have any plan for being able to put these families back together. My view on this is that we need to rework the whole area. We need to restructure it. I think that we can make ourselves safe without taking babies away from their mothers. I think we can make ourselves safe without treating people who ask for asylum as they flee gang violence or domestic violence, rape, possible murder. I think we can make ourselves safe without treating those people in ways that maximize the pain inflicted on them. And that's what I want to do. I want us to build an immigration system. We need comprehensive immigration reform, but also an immigration system that reflects our values and that ultimately is more effective for the goal of keeping us safe.
Senator Warren, pro-baby, anti-lobbyist. It seems like a winning strategy.
What's not to love?
All right. Thank you so much for joining us on Rebel Headquarters. We really appreciate it.
It's so good to see you. Thanks for having me.